Sometimes playing a game that you have been eagerly anticipating fails to live up to the unrealistic levels of hype that you've set for it. Other times, you're left absolutely speechless, wondering how they managed to take your expectations and shatter them so matter-of-factly. Now, I was going somewhere with that analogy, but I keep losing my train of thought. I'm not entirely certain as to the reasoning behind that. Regardless, having a different opinion to someone online is always going to leave you open for criticism and personal attacks. This game is good will leave you open to the anger from people that believe the game is horrible. This game is bad will leave you open to the anger from people that believe that the game is fantastic. The purpose of the Worst Gacha Ever series is not to solely criticize a game, nor is it to praise it unconditionally. Rather, this video series exists as a means with which to both critique and to complement various facets of a gacha game that I experienced over a set period of time, sometimes days, sometimes months. Hey, my name is Stix and welcome back to another episode of Worst Gacha Ever. If you enjoyed this series, make sure to like the video, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, hit that little bell notification because YouTube told me that if you don't, well, you'll probably fail those upgrades tomorrow. Oh, and make sure to check out the last episode in this series at the end of the video. Before we go any further, I just want to take a moment here to thank all of the absolute chads and chadettes that support this channel via Patreon. You're all freaking legends. Seriously, each and every single one of you. I would offer to give each of you a kiss, but I suffer from severe intimacy issues. Additionally, if you want to stay up to date with all the latest MMO, gacha, and gaming news, take a second here to follow Mrs. Stix and I over on Twitter. We tweet daily. So I was personally invited to play the global closed beta for Nikke by the team themselves. I was given exclusive access to the game, but I was an idiot and I didn't realize that I'd been sent access via email until several days after it had begun. So me being me, decided it would be a great idea to only play for a couple hours per day. This left me severely inhibiting my progress with regards to capturing footage, but I did ultimately end up playing long enough to fully grasp the concepts of the game and enjoy the several days that I'd spent in it. Upon making it through all of the crap on the home screen and finally making it into the game, you're greeted by a vision of a goddess, who you'll quickly find out is Marion.
Commander? No! They're going into cardiac arrest! AED charging! Clear! Commander, are you okay? Can you hear me? Smile if you can hear me. Finally! Can you tell me which section you're from?
And within seconds, you'll immediately realize that this is going to be a very addicting game. Not for the gameplay, not for the deep narrative, not for the rich surplus of features and content, not for the fair gacha rates, but for the... Oh yes, this game is filled with so much plot. And after successfully dodging your family for the 20, maybe 30 seconds of alone time that you needed, hey dude, no judgment, we all understand, we've all been there. You'll learn that there is a lot more to this game than the sexy waifus. Nikke is, in fact, well, crap, what would I even classify this game as? A third-person shooter RPG, kinda? You take on the role of the commander of an army of ridiculously hot women, like women that would put Victoria's Secret supermodels to shame, and admittedly, funny enough, actually wear less, whose singular goal is to comply with your every whim. Yes, you can tell that men made this game. Your goal in the game is to attempt to remain focused long enough to clear each encounter, while each waifu you deploy jiggles without restraint for the entirety of the battle. Each waifu has their own weapon type: shotguns, snipers, assault rifles. Each weapon type serves its own unique purpose. Rocket launchers deal massive damage and hit more of an AoE. Sniper rifles are exceptional at taking down enemies that are outside of the range of your close to mid-range artillery. And while every waifu does have their own unique affinity with and weapons that they ultimately excel in, you'll find yourself not caring at all and just throwing in every hot SSR character you can. Because why would you settle for anything less, right? Trust me, I suffered absolutely no penalty for deploying only the hottest of waifus. Sure, I had no active sniper, but at the same time, that just meant that it took a few extra seconds to take down long-distance enemies, which means more time to, well, admire the fantastic scenery present within the game. They did some great work with those buildings and, you know, the pillars over there. Was that I think that was a car. You know what? Maybe not. The scenery. Yeah. Oh, did you know, while we're actually talking about the scenery though, that not only can your waifus take direct cover from enemies by utilizing environmental cover, but the environments themselves are completely destructible, meaning that everything can be blown to pieces. I'll admit, this is episode 13, I think, of the Worst Gacha Ever series, and this is one of the few instances where I've taken the time to listen to the entire story. I sat through it, I listened to the voiceovers, which let me just quickly touch on. The English dub for Nikke is actually really quite good. I'm not fond of English dubs in mobile games. Seriously, they're often so unbelievably trash. But Nikke actually did a surprisingly good job with most of the waifus. There was one or two that kind of bothered me, like Annis, but I feel like I slowly got used to her. I never really liked her voice, but I got used to her enough to where it no longer continued to bother me. The top tier English dub, for mobile standards mind you, we're not talking about God of War or The Last of Us here, really helped the narrative stand out. It helps you connect with and become enthralled in the larger world, and thankfully I wasn't overwhelmed with story like I so often am when playing through mobile RPGs. Specifically, the bulk of games that I have played have story before and after missions, so much so that you're just left wanting to play the game. I work on this channel, I work on the main MMOBite channel, and I work on a brand new Stix Reacts channel, meaning a total of 3 channels full time. I stream 3 days a week, I game a little in my spare time. I don't really have the luxury of sitting through hours of exposition and drawn out several minute long explanations as to why we're walking through a forest to reach a city. So, encountering story elements a mere few times per chapter was actually a relief. It allowed for significantly more time to actively play the game without spending hours reading or listening to it. And playing the game was a ton of fun. Nikke utilizes a traditional progression system, but puts a spin on it that I haven't really seen outside of this game. Not saying that it hasn't been done, I just, in the 13 episodes of this series, have not played a game like it. Typically, you're given a number of chapters, with each chapter being filled with a selection of missions. Each mission is typically a battle consisting of several waves of enemies, with the odd story mission thrown in here and there. You click each mission, you select your units, and you proceed to deploy them into the engagement. In Nikke, you gain direct control of your units and you can move them around an explorable field. The fundamentals of progression remain the same. You're required to deploy your units and to win these encounters, but you're given the freedom to choose which encounters you want to do, whether you want to run around, whether you want to challenge other fights, look for unique items, just explore a little. And while the exploration is definitely very limiting, it really is. It's the small little feature that made the game exponentially more fun than the majority of other gacha that I've played. I love being given direct control of my characters, and this did just that. Now, outside of this, Nikke is your pretty basic gacha game. You clear missions, you clear chapters, you earn currency to roll for waifus. Since this was a closed beta test, it's impossible to accurately gauge whether or not the gacha was fair. I did end up with several SSR characters, and I only rolled a few times total, even though realistically I should have attempted more. I'm just, I don't know, I'm a hoarder, and I tend to accrue large quantities before rolling. That way I get more gratification, I guess, out of it. Seeing multiple SSR and SR characters as opposed to, maybe one and a bunch of useless common heroes. You level up your waifus, you can equip them with gear, you can enhance them, upgrade their skills. It is very straightforward and a lot less complex than their other game, Destiny Child, from what I can tell. You have a base of operations or headquarters, however you want to label it, which allows you to research, to talk to your waifus, and learn more about them, to send them out on missions. Exactly what you'd expect. There were several game modes outside of the main story, but I hadn't progressed far enough to unlock all of them, or maybe they just weren't all implemented yet, I'm not really sure. I was more interested in pushing through each chapter, listening to the narrative, and watching the boot to full gameplay. Being able to actively aim my waifu's shots and use their abilities manually was very fulfilling. Fortunately, there wasn't a single aspect of Nikke that I did not enjoy. On the contrary, I found this to be one of the most engaging quality gacha games that I've played yet, and I cannot wait for them to release it. Okay, you know what, I take that back. I guess the one thing that I do find issue with is the potential censorship of several characters. It's not confirmed, but it's definitely plausible that they are altering certain characters before releasing the game. Whether you consider that censorship or not, or heck, whether the models originally previewed were only temporary, were placeholders, remains to be seen, but it is still potentially seen as censorship. And as someone who loathes censorship of any kind, I genuinely hope that this game releases fully uncensored. Overall, Nikke has the potential to be one of the best gacha games of 2022 or 2023, whenever it ultimately releases. Is Nikke the worst gacha of 2022 though? Try potentially the best. Now, if you're looking for the previous episode in the worst gacha ever series, you can find that in this video right here, or if you're looking for a list of confirmed gacha games coming this year, then this video right here has you covered.